Today we're going to take a look at a vintage newspaper from November 23rd, 1935. And it's not just a random newspaper, it's a newspaper I got for a purpose, or I got for a reason. Hi everybody, Beanmeister22 here, and yes, we're going to take a look at a very old newspaper. This is the morning edition of the Omaha Bee News. November 23rd, 1935, 24 pages, and it costs 3 cents. Well, I paid a bit more than 3 cents for it. This is volume 65, number 135, and it's a real newspaper from a long, long time ago. When we look at an old newspaper from a particular date, it's really cool to go back and take a look at things like, what was the weather on that date? What was the stock market doing on that date? And look at, here's today's crossword puzzle. Am I going to try to do it? Yes, I do crossword puzzles, but I don't know if I'm going to try to do it because commonalities in crossword puzzles a long time ago are way different from what they are now. And something else that's really cool to do is to look at the advertisements. Whether it's a new car, or furniture set, or groceries, look at this. Pork loin roast, 19 cents a pound. Swiss steak, 18 cents a pound. Pork chops, 28 cents a pound. Steak, 20 cents a pound. Hamburger, 25 cents a pound? Oh no, that's 2 pounds for 25 cents. But here's something that's really funny. Pork chops at 28 cents a pound is more than beef or veal steak at 20 cents a pound. Well, I mean, it is Nebraska, right? Cattle country. But there's plenty of pigs and pork in cattle country. Also, bologna is 15 cents a pound. That's a bunch of bologna. And look, you can get a Crisco 3-pound can for 59 cents. Wow, what a bargain. Electric irons from $2.95 and up. Electric heaters for $4.95. Yeah, but you got to think about it. $4.95 was a lot of money back then. And you know what? The more things change, the more things stay the same. Look at this headline. Congress house cleaning next year. The real reason I got this newspaper was because of the date and what was on the front cover, the China Clipper. And here's a title. Giant plane opens ocean mail route. Marking a new epoch in world aviation, the giant China Clipper was nearing the halfway mark early Saturday in her 2,400-mile hop to Honolulu, inaugurating airmail service to Hawaii and the Philippines 8,000 miles away. That's why I got this newspaper. At this point in the trip, they didn't even know if the plane was going to make it that far. I mean, they've flown that far before, but here, airmail service, making the world a smaller place. At 2 a.m. Omaha time, the huge flying boat was reported 1,070 miles off the California coast. Taking it easy because of the huge mail cargo aboard, the big ship was doing far less than her normal cruising speed of 160 miles an hour, but was slipping the watery miles behind her with a margin to spare on the scheduled time to Honolulu. So this is the first inaugural run of scheduled mail service across the Pacific Ocean and to the other side of the world. And the title reads, Clipper Ship Nears Halfway Mark. And really, back in the day, this is a monumentous occasion. Mail service across the ocean to Honolulu, the Philippines, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, and airmail service. You could always put a letter on a boat and it would get there in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months. But now you could have airmail service that would get there in less than a week. I mean, it's not going to get to Hawaii in less than a week. It's going to get to Hong Kong or the Philippines in about a week. I think the average was 7 to 10 days, which is much better than 1 to 2 months. And from Wikipedia, the China Clipper NC 14716 was the first of 3 Martin M130 4-engine flying boats built for Pan American Airways and was used to inaugurate the first commercial transpacific airmail service from San Francisco to Manila on November 22nd, 1935. So it took off on November 22nd from Alameda, California, right there on the bay, and arrived in Manila, Philippines on November 29th. It stopped off at Honolulu, Midway Island, Wake Island, Sumay, Guam, and delivered over 110,000 pieces of mail. These days, people fly all around the world every day. There's still airmail, and now you have electronic email. But back in 1935, regularly scheduled airmail service to this extent was monumental. So yes, that's why I bought this vintage newspaper. Now, here's a couple stories of note from this newspaper. This is titled A Salty Sea Tale with a Bite to It. Miami Beach, Florida, November 22nd. An affidavit backs up this fish story. E.W. Tranter, retired Navy captain, fishing in the Gulf Stream, September 19th, sneezed and lost his false teeth. Friday, Captain Olaf Olsen, skipper of the Seahawk, returned to port with a catch of red snapper. One of the fish, cut open, yielded the missing teeth. Is this a true story? I mean, who knows? The funny thing is, I have heard this story as a joke before. Now, was this a joke with some vaudeville comedian from a long time ago? And that's how it got in the newspaper? Or was this something that, finger quotes, actually happened? It was in the newspaper, and then comedians over the years have used this story. Do I believe it happened? Well, no. I've heard this as a joke and a punchline for so long, and it's really funny that I see this on the bottom fold of the front page of a newspaper I get because the China Clipper is halfway to Honolulu to deliver mail to the Philippines. And in some sad news from France, in a town I cannot pronounce, November 22, 2 lions which escaped from the menagerie of the fair at the village of some other town I cannot pronounce. Friday, terrified early rising villagers and fatally clawed and bit 1 man. 2 escaped lions kill 1 and injure 1 is the title. This was back in the day when zoos and circuses would, I don't want to say routinely, but fairly commonly, would have wild animals escape and eat the locals. Or at least that's what history would have us believe. Now back to this. Boneless rolled Thai beef rib roast, 19 cents a pound. Fresh oysters, a pint is 23 cents. Well, that's impressive because we're talking about Omaha, Nebraska. You can't be much farther away from the ocean than Omaha, Nebraska. Hell, walnuts are 2 pounds for 33 cents. The rib roast is almost cheaper per pound, or slightly there above the price of just a pound of walnuts. Fish fillets, 2 pounds, 25 cents. Pork liver, 2 pounds, ugh. Says it's nicely sliced. And here's an exclusive with a caption under the picture. Again, a Yankee Clipper blazes the path of trade. C.W. Wright, engineering officer of the China Clipper and considered Pan American Airways foremost mechanical expert on the Clipper type of flying boats, writes his impressions as the huge aircraft slides along over the Pacific on its first leg of her history-making mail voyage to Manila. If you don't know anything about the Pan Am Clippers, go look it up. I stumbled upon a book about it and was amazed at what these flying boats could do and how they were used. We've talked about it in previous videos. There are some amazing Pan Am Clipper stories. And many of these stories come from that day in 1941 when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and attacked various locations around the Pacific where unknowingly Pan Am Clippers were still either on the ground waiting to take off or in the air and had not yet landed. Bam! Suddenly they were in the middle of a war zone and in territory controlled by the Japanese Imperial Navy. Some amazing stories. And the funny thing is, well, I don't know if it's funny, the strange thing is, these are stories I have never heard of. All right, what do you think? Have you ever taken a look at an old newspaper from a historic date or when a monumental undertaking was in the middle of being undertaken? Now remember, this is from November 23rd, the day after this plane took off. and still about 6 days before it landed in Manila. This is not just history. This paper was printed while history was being made. They didn't know if this plane was going to make it. They didn't realize that this first step to global airmail service, as big as it was then, would just be, average everyday occurrence here in the future. I'm not saying reading this newspaper will make you a sort of time traveler, but if you can put yourself in the shoes of somebody back then on November 23rd, 1935, who was reading this morning edition newspaper of the Omaha Bee News, and aside from, the dude getting eaten by a lion or the guy's false teeth ending up inside of a fish, wow, this is amazing. Okay, leave your comments in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching.
Beanmeister 22, the most dangerous man on YouTube.